Hello, it is Kamal Daniels, the Peng Sports Podcast, episode 12. It is May the 19th, 7:22 a.m. How are you all doing this week? Another week down in the fifth month of the year. Halfway done, a little bit over halfway done with the fifth month of the year. Summertime coming up. You hear the birds chirping, a lot more bugs out. As I said before in an earlier podcast, I believe. I do not like bugs of summer, but it's something you just have to accept. Hopefully you guys are having a good week. Hopefully you guys were able to accomplish something. And if you didn't accomplish something last week, try to accomplish something this week. Why not? But I don't want to get on a long intro this time. I want to get into some NBA stuff. And the playing games are tonight. The playing games were last night. Versus the Hornets and the Pacers. And the Wizards and the Celtics. So I'm going to get into the predictions for tonight because they're brief. Same as last week. Lakers beat the Golden State. I believe the Lakers will beat Golden State. And I believe Memphis will beat the Spurs and Golden State beats the Spurs. I believe Golden State and Memphis played the last games of the season for each team. And John Morant said, of course, Steph Curry deserves MVP. That's neither here nor there, but it was a closer game than people thought. Well, a closer game than people were expecting, I believe. Who do I have in that game? Why do I have the Golden State in that game? Really because of Steph Curry. As I said last week, the predictions stay the same. Of course, my Eastern Conference picks are a little different because it ended up the Wizards being the 9 seed and the Pacers being the Wizards being the 8 seed, the Pacers being the 9 seed, and the Hornets ending up being the 10 seed. So I said the Celtics will win their first game, and then I said the Wizards will win the next game because they were supposed to play the Pacers. Now we're going to get a Pacers-Wizards matchup on Thursday's game, I believe, to determine the 8th seed. Now, who do I have in that game? I think the Wizards are going to win. It's in Washington. One game, I don't think the Pacers are good enough defensively to hang with the Wizards offensively. But the problem with the Wizards is somewhat a problem with Portland. They're not crazy similar teams, but they have the 2 scorers and they don't have they don't have Nurkic like the Portland does. And that's really the main difference. But the Wizards just don't play any defense. And that's where they're similar. Primarily, is they don't play any defense. And I have to give it to the Celtics last night. I constantly talk about how they go on these little like streaks where they don't play basketball at all. And they did go on one of those streaks at the end of the first half, where I believe Wizards made a run. They were up at the half, and it looked like they were just going to cruise at the beginning of the third quarter. And then I think the Celtics played how they somewhat played against Denver when they came back against the Nuggets. I think the Celtics are somewhat like Tom Brady. They're not exactly like Tom Brady and the Buccaneers in the playoffs, but they're a kind of team that they wake up in the playoffs. They know what's up. It's the playoffs. It's time to get ready, get up, stop playing to love our competition. And that's what they did last night. Kemba Walker having a good game. Tatum dropping 50. Can Tatum continually drop 50? No. I think he can average around 30 points a game in the playoffs. I do believe that. But defensively, they were good. They weren't asking Naismith to do too much. They weren't asking Smart to do too much. Smart got injured last game. I think he's fine. Tristan Thompson, again, I said it earlier, needs to be starting. I think he's a weapon on the offensive glass. Of course, Wizards were somewhat smaller team. Also, the Wizards last game, Rui Hachimura was in foul trouble. So, what can we really take from that? Are the Wizards really that weak defensively? I believe they are. I saw them play in a few games this season. Some they've won, some they've lost. And it's just been... They score a lot of points, but the other team is expected to score a lot of points too. The sort in a way they're like Oregon in the Pac-12 or like a Texas Tech in the Big 12. They're going to score their points. And last night, they played a team who could compete with them defensively. A lot of people say Russell Westbrook had an off night. And Bradley Beal, someone had an off night. Yeah, you could say that, but you got to put some of that on the defense, right? It's a playing game. You're not supposed to have an off night in a playing game. Of course, it's double elimination for that team. But I feel like you need to have some sense of urgency, and they just didn't have that urgency. Can they win? Do I have them against the Pacers? Yes, 100%. But I'm not convinced. It's about a 70%. I'm 70% convinced that the Wizards are going to win against the Pacers. Now, I touched on this playing game stuff a few weeks back, and I don't mind it. I never minded it. I always thought it was a good idea. But I do believe this should be taken out after this season. But what I think the NBA should think about is reducing the amount of games in a season. When you reduce the amount of games in your season, winning your division means more. If you look at this last Sunday of the regular season, right? There's a lot to play for. Of course, the Eastern Conference had the playing game positions to play for, where the Wizards, if the Wizards won, this would happen. But all those teams were actually fighting for the 8th seed. If the Hornets would have beaten the Wizards, right, they would have been the 8th seed. The Pacers, for a moment, were the 8th seed because they had won their game. I forget who they played. But I want to say the Raptors. Not 100%. Could be wrong. But the Pacers were playing for the 8th seed. If somehow the Wizards and the Hornets tied in that game. The Wizards made the 8th seed because they beat the Hornets. And they had held the tiebreaker, I believe, over the Pacers. The Bulls actually had the tiebreaker over the Wizards. So somehow the Wizards and the Bulls finished up with the same record, the Bulls would have been in the playoffs. Just a lot more to play for, a lot more viewership, and it's a lot more interesting. So, as I said, winning your division would mean a lot more if there were less games. If you go into the Western Conference, right? Then Portland needed to win to secure the 6th seed. If they lose and the Lakers win, I do believe Portland would have still gotten in because they would have the same record, and Portland had a tiebreaker. But actually, I'm not too confident on that one, but I'm pretty sure that's how it worked. Or they came in with the same record. Hold up. Let me check. Okay, yeah. So if Portland lost, because Portland and the Lakers had the same record, if Portland would have lost to the Nuggets, then the Lakers would have been the 6th seed, and Portland would have been the 7th seed, and Portland would be in the play-in game. And that put Denver in a little predicament, right? Do you want to play Portland and give them confidence by beating you? Or do you want to beat Portland and let the Lakers win and Portland plays... Well, technically, Portland plays you in the first round. So it's a lot of politics, a lot of different schemes or different scenarios that could have gone on due to less games, due to it being a little bit more intense, players being more fresh, less injuries, of course, by being more fresh. It's more entertaining because the best players are playing. There's less resting players. So the league should look into reducing the amount of games. Maybe it's not 82 to 72, maybe it's 82 to 75, 82 to 78. Just have less games, because we're getting to the NFL stage, right? Where NFL's adding games. And the quality of your product goes down if you add games. That's what I believe was going to happen in the future. It won't happen, as I said, next week, next year. No one's going to notice the change. It's going to be probably the same amount. But over time, I believe, and I believe this has hurt the league. Even though they've always have pretty much played 82 games, they've been playing 82 games for a while. I just believe it's always time for a change, because resting players is apparently a huge problem in the NBA now. But another story or something else that's been huge in the news or sporting news lately is the Clippers tanking, quotation marks, tanking to not play the Lakers in the first round, play the Mavericks. And being scared of the Lakers is not something I think that the Clippers are, because I don't believe that, because my pick for a few weeks ago, if the Lakers and the Clippers played each other in the first round, I do believe the Clippers would have beaten them. Because chemistry, when you play two teams that are equal like them, chemistry does play a role in that. Now, when you look at it on the other side of things, Kawhi Leonard has been injured multiple games this season, right? Paul George he's been pretty healthy throughout the season, but he's ended up with some shoulder soreness. And we know about his shoulder. Shoulder soreness. Say that 5 times fast. Shoulder soreness. He's had some shoulder soreness. So now, are you going to risk Paul George re-injuring that shoulder worse than it already has been? Or do you rest him for the playoffs, the more important games? And shoot, if we lose these games, then we play the Lakers in the first round. But yes, I do believe in some ways the Clippers were tanking. But a team that's had Kawhi Leonard injured a lot of the season, Serge Ibaka injured a lot of the season, Patrick Beverley injured a lot of the season, they don't know their team. Rajon Rondo coming in and him not playing a boatload of minutes with Kawhi. We talk about the Lakers having chemistry issues. The Clippers clearly have chemistry issues, because most of the team's been injured most of the season, or some facet of their team, aspect of the team, has been injured most of the season. It's not the same scenario as the Lakers, of course, but it's very similar where the chemistry thing comes into play. The Lakers have a chemistry problem because the Lakers don't know Kuzma's role. They don't know how they're going to play with a fully healthy team. They played well, but the Clippers, I believe, are in the same boat as the Lakers when it comes to chemistry. And why would I when I potentially have a chemistry problem, play maybe the best team in the league in the first round. It just seems like a smart business decision for me. Play him in the Western Conference when we got our guys healthy, Western Conference Finals, when all our guys are healthy, and we got our chemistry down. Why not? Of course, it could bite them in the butt later. But I don't really see that. I don't think that's something to really worry about. I think there's something to worry about is right now, today, who we play in the first round. Let's get our chemistry together. Let's get everything worked out because last year, last point on this, last year the problem was chemistry. Granted, they were in the bubble and other things, but last year it was clear they had a chemistry problem. So, fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't put the blame on you. Fool me 3 times, forget the peace sign, load the chopper, let it rain on you. What's the term for idiots? I'm just putting out a lot of terms out here, a lot of sayings out here. Idiots do the same thing twice, know the same outcome and do the same thing twice, something along those lines. Clippers have a chemistry issue, so it'd be best to fix the chemistry issue like they didn't do last season. And the reason why Doc Rivers got fired. Also, Doc Rivers is a better coach than Brad Stevens. I'm just going to put that out there. Because when I said that last year to some of my friends, I got a lot of pushback. And maybe this year doesn't prove anything because, yes, Doc Rivers has a better roster, better team. But I think Doc Rivers is a better coach than Brad Stevens. Now, from one dysfunctional franchise, well, Clippers aren't dysfunctional, but from these two franchises actually do have this in common. One franchise that's never won a championship or trophy, hasn't won a trophy in more than 20 years, Tottenham, to another franchise from Clippers who have never won championship. That was bad transition. From the Clippers who have never won championship to Tottenham, who hasn't won a championship in 20 years. That was the transition I was going for. Who has not won a championship in 20 years. 2 trophyless franchises. Tottenham, now, Harry Kane has now said or expressed that he wants to leave Tottenham. When I first talked about this, we talked about how Manchester United put in a $90 million bid for Harry Kane. And it's more of a thing of, hey, we need Harry Kane. Let's get him. Let's attempt to try and get this guy. But it didn't seem like Harry Kane wanted to leave. It seemed like Harry Kane was still on the fence. But now it seems like, well, this was reported. Harry Kane wants to leave Tottenham Hotspurs. And what has Harry Kane done for Tottenham? One of the all-time leading goal scorers for them, if not all-time leading. Stuck with them during the tough times, during the bad times, or the mediocre times when they underperformed. He multiple Champions League, showed up in the big game, Champions Leagues. When they made the final, he was injured that year, but constantly showing up. Harry Kane, one thing you can't say about Harry Kane is he didn't show up in the big games, because he did. Now, who are the teams interested and who are the front runners? Almost every team's interested, I'll say that. But the front runners are the usuals. Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City, PSG, Barcelona, Real Madrid. They're always going to be in the mix. Barcelona is probably the least, if I were to put money on any team not getting Harry Kane, it would be Barcelona. Now, will he play for Real Madrid or PSG? I don't think so. I don't think he's going abroad. I think he wants to stay in England and won a Champions League, win a Premier League with FA Cup with the English side. I think he preferred to win it with Spurs, but you gotta say, hey, sometimes you just gotta cut the bandage off. Sometimes the relationship's just over. The spark isn't there anymore. Now, we've decided he wants to stay domestically, most likely. He could always go to Real Madrid. But he wants to stay domestic. And he wants to compete. Manchester United, Chelsea, City. I was thinking Chelsea would not fit for him, right? I was thinking Chelsea wouldn't fit. But Chelsea can play multiple styles, and I see that, and I've seen that throughout the games. They can play possession, they can play counterattacking. That's why I like Thomas Tuchel so much. And when I said Harry Kane wouldn't be a good fit because he's not used to playing that kind of style or changing styles like that. Well, when I think about it, he's been able to adjust his game multiple times. This year, he's dropped a little bit deeper. Last year, he did it towards the end of the season a little bit more, but he's been dropping deeper, become more of a distributor. For Pochettino, he was the target man for Tottenham. For parts of Jose Mourinho era, he was a part of the counter attack. And that's what led to his role with somewhat being a deep striker this year. So Harry Kane can play multiple positions, multiple roles. Maybe not the most mobile player, but he can play multiple positions, multiple roles. He's best, I believe, as a target man, as a traditional striker, but he can play the untraditional role. And then, when you think of Manchester City, Harry Kane going to Manchester City makes Manchester City a potentially an invincible team. That's the kind of thing that happens when Harry Kane goes to City. This team is not predicted to win the Premier League. They're predicted to go undefeated in the Premier League. That's what I'm expecting if Harry Kane goes to City. With Kevin De Bruyne, the second best player in the world. I'll say it again. Kevin De Bruyne, the second best player in the world. With Diaz. With Sterling. With all these players. I truly, truly believe that Harry Kane on Manchester City makes this Manchester City team a quadruple winning side, treble winning side, all of the above. Greatest team in Premier League history if Harry Kane goes. Now, where do I want him to go? Where would I prefer him to go? Manchester United. And last week not last week, but it may have been last week. It was last week. I talked about what's happening with Marcus Rashford. I'm alright with Marcus Rashford now, Marcus Rashford's position. He can play left, he can play right. They figured that part out. Marcus Rashford is going to be playing. So, one of my favorite players is fine. But I want him to go to United only because to make another team better. Selfishly, I want him to go to United. So now there's 3 teams. Because when Virgil van Dijk comes back, best believe Sadio Mane is getting a little bit better. Robertson's getting a little bit better. When Henderson comes back, Liverpool's going to be a valid squad when they're healthy. And I believe Alisson's going to be in better form. It's just going to be a better experience for Liverpool next season. So now we got 4 teams. Chelsea get Haaland. Chelsea, I hear, potentially may get Aguero. I think we're looking at a very stacked, I won't say the best Premier League ever, because I was alive for the 02s, 03s, 04s, but I don't remember ever watching the Premier League back then. When Henry and Ronaldo was playing on the same team. I wasn't there around. So I can't say that this will be the best Premier League ever if Harry Kane goes to Manchester United. But I believe it will be one of the best Premier Leagues I've ever seen. Let me think in the past few years. When I started getting to the Premier League, what everyone says is those were the poor years. When Manchester City was first coming up, that was a poor year. And you could somewhat agree with that. Not a lot of Champions League bursts, not a lot of Champions League semi-final bursts, not a lot of Champions League final bursts, not Champions League. So yeah, I could understand why that Premier League may have been piss poor. But this Premier League is definitely a lot better. And Manchester United being back is like the Celtics and Lakers being good. It's always good for sports when your traditional powers are good. Leicester City. Selfishly, I want Harry Kane to go to United. Selfishly. But if Harry Kane pulls a KD, I'm not going to be mad with him and go to the City. I like greatness. I like looking at greatness. At first, I wasn't a fan of the KD thing, but I realized that was one of the greatest teams of all time. Let me appreciate it. So the City, if Harry Kane goes to City, I may not be a fan of it at first, but greatness. I like greatness. Now, how much do you think the Euros play into this? Phil Foden, probably going to make the England squad. Maguire looks injured, but they still have Rashford and Luke Shaw most likely. How much do you think that plays into a team, a player wanting to play with another guy? We've seen it in all-star games in the NBA where players from different teams play with each other and they say, oh, I like playing with this guy in the all-star game. And that helps them with their decision. I definitely think it helps. Now, Foden, will he be starting? Will he be feeding the balls into Harry Kane? I don't know. Now, Mason Mount is also going to be playing on that side. Chelsea, as I said, are in the running. How much does Mason Mount playing balls to him? How much does Rashford playing balls to him help with the team, with Harry Kane's mindset? Also, another question I have. I forgot my question. I just forgot it. Oh. I just totally forgot my question. Totally just forgot my question. Had it in my mind, and I was holding it back, and then I just forgot it. It started with a W. It was what, where, who, something like that. But anyways, if it comes back to me, I'll say it again. But speaking of feeding balls into Harry Kane, speaking of Mason Mount, congratulations to Leicester City winning the Champions League. Not the Champions League, the FA Cup. And what I have to say about the FA Cup was, it was a good game. Chelsea and Leicester played yesterday. Chelsea won 2-1. And what I've been hearing is a lot of praise about Mason Mount. Now, is Mason Mount a good player? Yes. Does he have phenomenal attacking position? Is he always in the right place at the right time when Chelsea are attacking? Yes. Is he a good finisher? Yes. Could become better? Yes. But the train of thought that everyone has is he's this controller of the game. He controls the tempo. He's just this great player, and he does it all for Chelsea. And I have yet to see that. I've yet to see him dictate a game like a Fabregas or an Iniesta or a Xavi. Of course, those guys are in high praise. But the more important player to me is clearly N'Golo Kante. And then the second best player for Chelsea, for me, has been Rudiger. And then 3, Mason Mount. Just this whole thing that I've been hearing, that how Mason Mount totally just controls these games And yes, and again, he is a very good player. But he, to me, is like a Justin Herbert kind of deal. Good. Very good. You see the talent, can potentially become a great player. If anything, he's shown a little bit more than Justin Herbert. But let's hold up before we put Justin Herbert in top 10 QBs. Let's hold up on that, right? Mason Mount. Let's hold up before we put him in the same class as Harry Kane's, Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne's. He's not even in the Raheem Sterling class for me. Yet. Marcus Rashford class. If I were to take one or the other, I'd take Rashford right now. All I'm saying is we need to hold up on these boosting them up. He was the Chelsea Player of the Year. I don't know about that one either. Again, Conte, Rudiger, and I believe Conte is sort of falling in that LeBron category where he's just the best player on the team and he's not going to win those awards every year. So, I have another question for you. A question that I actually wrote down, a question that I remember. And I'm going to put you into a hypothetical. Let's say you are at a job and you're getting good opportunities at your job. Like, let's say if you're an architect, right? And your boss doesn't let you design the skyscrapers, doesn't let you design the mansions. I don't know how the architect industry works. I believe some architects probably design houses, some architects probably design business buildings. But anyways, let's say he wasn't letting you design the skyscrapers and the mansions. But he did allow you to design the mobile homes and portables. Always gave you jobs. But you're not able to design those skyscrapers. The pay is the same. If not, you may get more money than the people. They may get a little bit more praise, but it's not anything to get jealous over. Would you stay with that company that's not going to give you maybe why you entered the business, but they still give you opportunities? Or would you leave because you want to design the skyscrapers? You may leave for less money, but you want to design the skyscrapers and the mansions. What would you do? Stay or go? Getting the money, again, you get everything, just some of the opportunities you don't get. Respected, no one disrespects you, everyone likes you. What would you do in that scenario? And of course, where you come from, your background, your history affects it. So, honestly, any answer isn't right, is wrong. Every answer is correct. It's an opinion question. I say that, I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about Raheem Sterling with Manchester City. He plays in the Premier League, but he doesn't play in the Champions League. He's not going to play in the Champions League unless he's coming in as a substitute. How would you feel about that? Let's say a player in the NFL played in every regular season game, but he doesn't play in the playoffs at all. Or he comes in late as a sub on when the team's down by 14 with 32 seconds left. And there's nothing to play for. It's garbage time. How would you feel about that? What's your train of thought behind that if you're not going to be playing in the big games? Personally, I think I leave only because this is football. It's one of those careers you're not going to play forever, and I'm at my peak. Maybe I should be playing big games with big teams. Just what I think, but again, my history and where I come from, it's a little different than other people's train of thought. But What I want to finish on this topic about football this week, real football this week, is Harry Kane. What I'm seeing from Harry Kane. There's no uproar in the media about it. There's no criticism of Harry Kane wanting to leave. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I actually appreciate that people are realizing, hey, Harry Kane has earned his right to leave. But I just want to note how we're reacting to this. Alright? I just want to note that. How we're reacting to Harry Kane not leaving. Just in case. Just in case. I just want to note it. That how we're reacting to this. No criticism, no uproar. It's about time kind of ordeal. But anyways, with last week being the last week of basketball, and this week being the last week of real football, the season and the dog days of summer are starting, and the seasons of regular season sports are coming to an end. But with the last week of football, this comes a very important week of football. Champions League positions are being decided. Liverpool have very important games coming up. Not big games necessarily, but important games. They need must-win games. Juventus needs to win, and they need some help with Champions League. Ronaldo plays on Juventus. But a game that's coming up in today, 3 o'clock ESPN, if you're busy and you're looking for something to watch, Lazio versus Juventus. It's not a Serie A game, but it's a big game in Italy. It's the Coppa Italia. And as I said, Juventus need Napoli to lose. This is in Serie A that I'm talking about. Napoli, Juventus. Coppa Italia is Lazio Juventus. Napoli and Juventus don't play each other, but Juventus would need Napoli or AC Milan to lose, and Juventus would need to win one of those teams to lose so they can get into Champions League next season. So that's what's at stake for Juventus this weekend, or this last week of football, right? Now, for the common thing I've been saying, if Liverpool makes the Europa League, there's no point in playing at all. Now, if Juventus make it, maybe the Europa League can still have a final, right? Hopefully, UEFA doesn't put those two teams in the same bracket, so it messes up. So they play each other in like the semifinal. Hopefully, they play on two different sides of the bracket so they can meet in the final. But it's looking like Liverpool is not going to make the Europa League. Looks like they're likely to go to the Champions League if they can win out. But Juventus not making the Champions League is bigger than you think. Now, why is the Coppa Italia game big also? If Juventus don't win today, they don't get a trophy this whole season. So this whole 2021 season will be basically a bust. If Juventus gets their trophies this year and make Europa League, them making just Europa League can risk Ronaldo leaving. If they don't win any trophies this year, Ronaldo is I would say most likely out the door at Juventus. If they don't win anything and they make Europa League, I believe the thing that's saving them is them maybe winning today. Now, where will Ronaldo go? I don't know. Maybe back to United, maybe back to Real Madrid. I have no clue. But with Messi potentially leaving Barcelona this summer, and Ronaldo leaving, and Haaland, and Mbappe's most likely to stay in PSG at least one more year, but still Mbappe could potentially leave. This is going to be an interesting off season for, or transfer window for players this year. Look out. It's going to be very, very interesting. Now, on to the predictions for the NBA first round. And I'm going to go through these pretty quick. I'm not going to explain them too much. So, Jazz versus the 8th seed. We don't know who the 8th seed will be. I believe it will be Golden State. I still have the Jazz. Suns versus 7th seed. We don't know who the 7th seed is. I got the Lakers. Now, there's a potential possibility that Golden State can beat the Lakers tonight. If the Golden State beats the Lakers and they play the Suns in the first round, I got the Suns. So if the Lakers get through, Suns go through. If the Golden State goes through, Suns. Excuse me. Trailblazers, Nuggets. Trailblazers. Mavericks, Clippers. Clips. On to the East. 76ers versus the 8th seed. I think the 8th seed will be the Wizards, but it could be the Pacers. But what I want to say about, I told you I wouldn't dwell on any picks or over-discuss or over-analyze any picks, but I just want to say this for a minute. The Wizards have a guy who's a one-time MVP, averaged a triple-double 4 years, leads all-time triple-doubles, all-time leader in triple-doubles in the NBA. And his second best player, his Robin, is the second leading scorer in the league. And they're going to be knocked out in the first round if they make the playoffs. And I wasn't around in the 90s or 80s. But I'm going to just say this. I think the NBA is better than it's ever been. And you got a guy who's the greatest shooter of all time, leading scorer in the NBA this year, 2-time MVP, the only player to ever make a unanimous MVP, may not make the playoffs and may get potentially knocked out in the first round. I just want you to go on and marinate on that for a moment. Just marinate on it. Marinate on it. Alright? So, 76ers, Wizards, that's what I'm saying. If they play the Pacers either, I got the 76ers. Next pick. Nets, Celtics. Nets. Heat, Bucks. I got the Bucks. Now, finally, the Hawks versus the Knickerbockers. I'm going with ATL. I'm going with the team from ATL. Now, that's it. That's it for this podcast, you guys. The Peng Sports Podcast, episode 12. Thank you for listening. A lot of good, intense football, real football will be coming on this week. Check it out. If you think football is a boring sport, this is the week to watch. Intense games, cup finals coming up next week. Champions League final, I believe, next Saturday. It's going to be a good week of sports. And then you got Euros coming up. So this dog days of summer thing is really a myth if you're into football and into other sports. There are tennis competition. There's tennis and golf competition in the summertime majors. Right? So dog days of summer coming up, but not so dog. You got trade rumors coming up. You know, NBA free agency is always fun. But anyways, thank you for listening to the Peng Sports Podcast, episode 12 with Kamal Daniels. And thank you.